The man you see now has it all: fame, fortune, and a dream life. But what no one knows is that behind this billion-dollar empire, there is a broken, betrayed, and abandoned woman who sacrificed everything to put him on top. How can someone who received so much love pay with such cruelty? Before you find out what really happened in this shocking story, leave your like and subscribe to the channel to support our work. Now, let's get to the full story. The city stands like a giant illuminated against the night sky, mirrored facades reflecting the lights of cars crawling through traffic. It is in this setting of contrasts, where great fortunes can be made and undone in the blink of an eye, that the story of Isabella and Andre unfolds in a breathtaking way. The night shines with neon signs and technological billboards showing off the region's new ventures, including an emerging digital security startup that has been making headlines. Little by little, we begin to understand that Isabella, an investor known for her flair for startups, walks the streets with a firm step. Her face, however, carries an expression of certain melancholy. The way she looks at the tall buildings indicates that she is not just another one in the crowd. There is something profound in her gaze, a touch of remembrance or longing, as if each sparkling building were a piece of a past that, for her, does not bring back good memories. In a sudden cut, the story goes back a few years. We see Isabella younger, full of vitality and a certain pride. She is in what appears to be a futuristic auditorium, full of light panels, presentation stands, and a stage where entrepreneurs take turns showing their creations. It is a convention of innovation and technology, the perfect place for investors and visionaries to connect. The audience, bustling with activity, whispers softly as they watch each project being demonstrated, applauding with curiosity or skepticism. Isabella, accustomed to this type of environment, remains standing in the back, evaluating the proposals with a meticulous eye. She is looking for something beyond the surface of the products on display. She is looking for that unique, different idea capable of transforming the world of business. Amidst grandiose presentations, a young man with disheveled hair and a hesitant gaze appears. When he goes on stage, he introduces himself as Andre, a software developer with a disruptive prototype, in his words, for the security of systems on personal devices. Unlike previous presentations, which were full of marketing and refined design, Andre is clearly an introvert. His speech is rushed, and the slides are full of code and technical terms. Most of the audience doesn't quite understand what he's saying, but Isabella, attentive to the details, notices the boldness and potential hidden behind his speech. She feels a shiver of excitement, something that alerts her that there is a true diamond in the rough. The presentation ends with timid applause. Many people did not understand the revolution Andre is proposing. He steps down from the stage, somewhat embarrassed, adjusting his glasses and trying to avoid eye contact. Isabella decides to approach him. When she greets him, she notices his discomfort at dealing with a renowned investor who shows genuine interest. He explains that his software works as a kind of guardian AI, analyzing usage patterns to block suspicious activity on any device. The conversation quickly reveals Andre's genius. He describes complex algorithms, machine learning methods, and cybersecurity strategies that go beyond what traditional companies offer. Fascinated, Isabella introduces herself formally. They exchange contact details and agree to talk calmly another time. Little does she know that this brief encounter will change the trajectory of both of them, for better or for worse. Time moves on to their first meeting outside of an event setting. Sitting in a discreet cafe, the two discuss investment opportunities and financial projections. Isabella explains that she can finance part of the development and, in exchange, wants a percentage of the shares. Andre hesitates, not because he doesn't want the money, but because he's not sure how these deals work. He's a genius with the code, but inexperienced in the business world. Isabella sees this weakness and, in a welcoming way, offers guidance. A connection is born. The combination of a visionary but insecure mind with the confidence and analytical coolness of an investor who knows how to sniff out profits. As the weeks go by, Isabella and Andre deepen their bond. The agreement continues to move forward. They discuss contractual details, goals, and deadlines. She helps him improve the presentation of the project to potential partners, teaches him how to deal with cost spreadsheets and projections, while he increasingly delves into the development of new software functions. Between meetings and dinners, a feeling of complicity sets in. At first, they treat each other as colleagues, but their affinity grows, and the frenetic pace of work brings them closer together. They spend late nights discussing technological solutions, drinking coffee until dawn, celebrating small advances and creating a private world in Andre's simple apartment. That's when Isabella notices signs of something strange. Sometimes, in the dead of night, Andre opens tabs on his computer that don't seem related to the project. His eyes light up with a kind of fever. She quickly realizes that they are online gambling sites. He bets worrying amounts on digital roulette games or virtual sports, always with the tense expression of someone who believes that a big stroke of luck will solve his problems once and for all. Isabella tries to better understand what's going on. She questions Andre, who initially lies, saying that they were just programming tests. But it doesn't take long for him to confess. He's been addicted to gambling since college, has lost a lot of money, and is looking for a way to recover everything he spent. Isabella feels a twinge of compassion and at the same time, a sense of alert. She realizes that she's dealing with someone in a fragile, perhaps even dangerous state. The story deepens when we discover that Andre not only lost his own money, but also took out abusive loans to continue gambling. Some of the debts are in the names of family members who have broken contact with him, ashamed and exhausted from trying to help him without success. Isabella, despite being shaken, feels an uncontrollable urge to save him. It is as if she sees beyond the dependency, seeing this creative genius trapped in an invisible cage. She decides, on impulse, to help him out of this financial and emotional hole. This choice becomes the trigger for the roller coaster that she will face next. The routine of the couple, now boyfriend and girlfriend as they have become very close, changes drastically. Isabella begins to invest large amounts of capital not only in the development of the software, but also to cover Andre's debts. She keeps him away from the virtual tables, blocking all the betting sites she finds on his personal computer, passwords and systems that she herself configures. However, addicts are creative in their escapes. Sometimes in the middle of the night, he breaks through the blocks, finds alternative sites, and starts gambling again. Isabella, exhausted, hires a therapist specialized in addictions to support Andre. She faces not only the challenge of leveraging a promising startup, but the task of saving the person she loves from a self-destructive spiral. Time passes, and the startup begins to attract the attention of the market, even though the prototype is unfinished. Some investors are impressed with the software's central idea. Rumors emerge that large cybersecurity corporations may be interested. Isabella is even sought out by some big names in the sector. However, she needs Andre to be fully operational. At every new opportunity, she runs to him with reports, contracts, and pitch strategies. He oscillates between extremely productive days in which he creates brilliant features for the platform, and nights in which he simply disappears, immersed in bets with untrustworthy people. When the old debts finally seem to disappear, new ones start to appear with extortionate interest rates. Isabella then starts selling part of her shares in other companies to cover these gaps. It is a risky decision because she used to have a solid portfolio with diversified investments, but little by little she finds herself putting all her eggs in one basket: Andre's security startup. Close friends confront her, saying that she is destroying her career. Many think it is crazy to put faith in someone who has already given so many proofs of financial irresponsibility. But Isabella, feeling intimate with Andre's genius, remains determined. She remembers the hours they spent together, the sparkle she saw in his eyes when he demonstrated the infinite possibilities of the software. She believes that, if he recovers, he can take the project to the top of the market. A small turning point occurs when Andre, after a brief stay in a rehabilitation clinic that Isabella pays for out of her own pocket, returns apparently more centered. There is a moving sequence of scenes in which he dedicates himself intensely to programming, eliminating any distractions. He spends weeks locked in the apartment, eating fast food, sleeping few hours, but developing advanced features that begin to attract the attention of influential businessmen. Isabella, now almost broke, feels relieved to see that the effort is finally having an effect. The crucial moment arrives when they have the opportunity to present the prototype to a group of potential angel investors. The scene takes place in a modern building with huge windows and minimalist rooms. The atmosphere is formal. Men and women in dark suits await presentations from selected startups. The moment Andre places his laptop on the meeting table, there is a tense silence. Isabella holds her breath, hoping that nothing goes wrong. He begins to talk about the large-scale applications of the software, pointing out how his platform can detect and mitigate cyber attacks using autonomous artificial intelligence. He explains loopholes that not even the largest companies in the industry have foreseen. As he speaks, the investors are left open-mouthed. One of them even interrupts him and asks him to do a real-time demonstration. Andre promptly executes, demonstrating with confidence and charisma. Isabella observes Andre's gaze, which was previously distracted and addicted to gambling, now transformed into a man confident in his talent. She smiles, hopeful. The meeting ends with applause. Outside, in the hallway, Andre and Isabella embrace, exultant. The conversation flows quickly about expansion plans, hiring staff, and marketing strategies. A few days pass and financial proposals start to arrive. Investors are already talking about 8-figure sums, which would take the startup from a simple prototype to a truly global company. Isabella, who until then had been supporting everything on the basis of loans and personal sacrifices, sees the chance to recover her assets, and most importantly, to see the man she loves reborn without the shackles of addiction. The first rounds of investment are successful, and the startup is growing like a rocket. Andre's name starts to appear in magazines and technology websites. There are interviews, TV shows, and invitations to major conferences. Isabella is recognized as the investor who discovered and polished the genius, although the media attention is much more focused on him. Still, she feels proud. She sees that Andre now has a different outlook when he talks about work, so full of passion and focus. They continue to live together, sharing the same apartment, even though the demands of the business force them to spend less free time together. However, Isabella notices small changes in his behavior. He becomes more distant on some nights, and he no longer seeks to talk about the company's strategic decisions as much. She tries to convince herself that this is just the price of growth. The company is in the spotlight, and Andre has to deal with many commitments. Sometime later, he convinces her that they should expand to a large office in the most luxurious part of the city. Isabella thinks it is hasty, but agrees, afraid of not supporting him at such a promising time. The headquarters are set up in a cutting-edge building with panoramic views, high-end furniture, and a technical team that starts working full-time. Meetings are scheduled all the time, and Andre is required to attend networking dinners with top executives. Isabella accompanies him to some events, but he doesn't invite her to others. He explains that these are specific situations and that she would be bored. She pretends to accept, but begins to suspect. She notices that Andre is becoming increasingly reserved about his schedule and occasionally notices messages on his cell phone from a well-known digital influencer in the fashion world. At first, she doesn't pay much attention to it because she imagines that it could be some kind of marketing campaign for the company, but the frequency and relaxed tone of the messages make her anxious. A key moment happens late one afternoon. Isabella, after an exhausting meeting with financial consultants, decides to stop by the office to talk to Andre. When she arrives, the door to the main room is ajar and she hears loud voices and laughter. Then, she sees Andre and this influencer talking in an intimate, almost conspiratorial way about future plans. The woman says something about being finally free to do something. Isabella feels her stomach churn but decides not to go in, just to move away so as not to be noticed. She leaves the building with a tense face, fighting back tears. Later, Andre shows up at home as if nothing had happened, but she notices a subtle coldness in his voice. He doesn't ask about her day, doesn't bother to tell her about his. Meanwhile, the startup is reaching an enviable level. Billion-dollar contracts with banking networks, telecommunications companies, and even government agencies are announced. Andre's fortune is multiplying to surreal figures, and Isabella feels that despite being involved in the success, she is no longer an essential piece on the board. He increasingly excludes her from strategic meetings, saying that the investment sector is now the responsibility of new partners. She tries to argue, reminding him of how much she has sacrificed and invested, but he plays it cool, claiming that her position in the company is still guaranteed, although her responsibilities need to be better defined. To Isabella, it sounds like empty talk. She feels out of place in what she helped to build. As more rounds of investment come in, Andre starts to appear in society columns and at gala events. He no longer drives the old car he shared with Isabella. Now he drives an imported sports car. He changes his wardrobe, goes to luxury gyms, and makes public appearances alongside influential people. Meanwhile, Isabella, who had given everything she had, money, time, reputation, barely receives credit or mentions for her role in building this empire. Emotional tension builds when rumors surface online, suggesting that Andre is in a relationship with the influencer, appearing in blurry paparazzi photos, always in situations where Isabella is not around. Then comes the announcement of a grand opening event. The company has decided to open a new, even more impressive headquarters in one of the city's most privileged areas. An entire building to house research teams, customer service departments, and testing labs. It will be Andre's coronation as a technology tycoon, and all eyes will be on him. Isabella receives a formal invitation via email, as if she were just another guest. Surprised and hurt, she decides to go anyway, because she feels she needs to make her presence felt as a founding partner, even though she is now reduced to an almost decorative figure. On the day of the event, the building presents itself with futuristic architecture, full of metal structures and reflective glass. The entrance hall has a giant chandelier, reception rooms packed with journalists, investors, and celebrities. There are exquisite buffets and waiters circulating with glasses of champagne. Isabella arrives alone, wearing an elegant but discreet dress, as she does not want to attract too much attention. Her internal tension is high. The atmosphere is one of pure glamour. The press covers everything live, and camera flashes go off constantly. Several guests recognize Isabella and comment among themselves. Isn't she the investor who discovered Andre? Or, I thought she would be announced as the main partner today. Some approach to greet her, but she senses a slight awkwardness in the air, as everyone senses that something is strange in her relationship with the founder. After speeches from some executives, it is finally Andre's turn to speak. He takes the stage, imposing and confident, dressed in an impeccable suit. He smiles for the cameras, greets the audience with broad gestures, and begins to describe the company's journey, from the initial idea to its resounding success. At no point does he mention Isabella by name. He speaks generically about initial investors, dedicated teams, luck, and personal effort. Then he calls his life and business partner to the stage, using words that make an immediate impact on the audience. The influencer appears, radiant, dressed in an exuberant outfit, waving to the audience. Andre introduces her as the person who has supported his most ambitious projects, saying that he is starting a new phase with her. Confusion spreads throughout the room. Some journalists look at Isabella, waiting for a reaction, while the influencer gives a victorious smile in front of the flashes. Isabella feels the ground disappear beneath her feet. The entire story they lived through plays like a movie in her mind. The long sleepless nights, the huge debts she covered, the clinics she paid for, the friends she lost defending his potential. The pain is so intense that she can't breathe. She drops her champagne glass on the soft carpet without realizing it. Her eyes fill with tears, but she keeps herself strong enough not to break down in front of everyone. People around her whisper, "My God, what's going on?" Or, "She was his girlfriend, wasn't she?" The protagonist feels her heart beat faster, as if it were going to explode. She decides to leave before the humiliation becomes worse. She moves away from the flashes, walking quickly through the hallways. Her mind is full of memories. When she believed in him, when she called her friends to invest, when she held his face in the early hours of the morning when he begged her to bet one more time. Every smile, every exchange of confidences, everything now seems like an illusion. It is an overwhelming blow. She finally reaches the street, where the night is cooler and the sounds of the city seem to echo with a peculiar bitterness. The camera flashes still flash in the distance, but she does not turn around. She keeps going, sometimes stumbling over her own anger. Cut to a few hours later. Isabella is in her apartment, sitting in the dark, lost in thought. Silence dominates the place that was once full of conversations, projects, and shared dreams. Her cell phone vibrates incessantly. Messages from friends, questions from reporters, demands from family members, everything piles up while she, motionless, watches the screen light up the room. She feels betrayed in the worst possible way, not only emotionally but also professionally. She understands that Andre used her to reach the top and, at the height of his success, turned his back. At that moment, memories of old conversations come flooding back. He said that, after overcoming his addiction, he would be a better man, would honor his commitments, and would reciprocate the support he received. Isabella wonders if he was ever sincere, or if he was always driven by a thirst for success. She remembers, through tears, the times when she thought about giving up, but kept going for love. Now the only thing she is certain of is that her entire financial and emotional future is in tatters. In a moment of desperation, she picks up the phone and dials a few numbers but gives up before the call goes through. She is ashamed of appearing weak to those who warned her about Andre. She feels humiliated and has no strength to speak. However, she also realizes that she still has a reserve of courage within her. She knows the technology market is respected and has worked on brilliant projects. She has risen again on other occasions, although not so dramatically. The challenge now is to overcome the shadow that Andre cast over her life. In the following days, Isabella remains reclusive. She avoids the press, refuses invitations for interviews, and does not access social media. However, a flame begins to burn inside her. The pain turns into determination, a kind of desire to rebuild not only her financial life, but also her self-esteem. She talks to lawyers to understand the extent of her equity stake in the company and whether there is any loophole to sue Andre for moral or material damages. She discovers that many contracts were signed without her full knowledge, thanks to his maneuvers. She has some legal support, but she needs documentary evidence that shows the fundamental role she played in the creation of the software and in paying the debts. So she starts to search through emails, bank statements, receipts from rehabilitation clinics, meeting notes. She comes across clear evidence that practically everything Andre has achieved has her finger and her money. At the same time, the media begins to speculate about Isabella's disappearance. Rumors emerge that she was unfairly dismissed from the company, while Andre appears more and more in the company of the influencer. The two give interviews in which they talk about future plans astronomical investments, and even philanthropic campaigns. He begins to be seen as a kind of eccentric billionaire who is revolutionizing the cybersecurity scene. Rarely does anyone ask him about his ties to Isabella, and when asked, Andre answers vaguely, implying that it was just a personal relationship that came to an end. At home, the protagonist watches these reports with a lump in her throat. She wants to shout the truth, but she knows she needs to act cautiously to avoid falling into more traps. She remembers the negotiation techniques she mastered at the beginning of her career and realizes that perhaps it is time to use them to defend what is rightfully hers. Slowly, Isabella begins to plan a counterattack. She thinks about opening her own company, using what she still has left and some connections in the market. Friends who were once distant come to her again, offering help, or at least a shoulder to cry on. In an emotionally charged scene, Isabella meets with an old mentor, a veteran investor who has known her since she was young and knows her skills. He welcomes her into an elegant office filled with shelves of books on finance and technology. At first, she feels embarrassed to tell him everything that happened, but he listens to her without judgment, touched by her sincerity. He tells her that if she wants to get back on her feet, she will need to prove to the market that she is still standing and has ideas. He reminds her of when she herself managed several startups impeccably. He suggests that Isabella present a new project that might interest investors, since as a friend, he would be keen to open doors for her. Isabella, hesitant, confesses that she feels weakened, but her mentor insists, "Do you want to be stuck in what happened, or do you want to show the world who you really are?" While this window of hope is emerging, another event is unfolding. Andre is planning a new product launch within his company, something that promises to further increase his influence in the market. The launch party is scheduled to take place at the headquarters that Isabella helped finance, that gigantic and modern building. The intention is to present new software features enhanced by artificial intelligence updates. The influencer is already promoting everything on social media, creating hype among millions of followers. The company's market value rises with each positive rumor. On the day of the big launch, Isabella is not invited. However, she decides to attend anyway, arriving discreetly and mingling with the reporters waiting at the entrance. Dressed professionally, but without attracting attention, she tries to avoid the flashes, as she does not want to give interviews. She manages to infiltrate the lobby of the building and observes the sumptuous decoration and the celebratory atmosphere. Colored lights illuminate the hall, soft carpets cover the floor, large panels display the company logo. Everywhere, there are references to the revolutionary software that Isabella helped create. Every detail seems to vibrate with luxury and grandeur. Finally, Andre appears on the main stage again, this time accompanied by the influencer, who smiles radiantly as he holds the microphone and announces the great innovation. He shows animated graphs, usage statistics, and testimonials from satisfied customers. The audience of special guests erupts in applause, blinded by the magnitude of the success. The situation bothers Isabella, who remains in the background, arms crossed, fighting back her anger. With each mention of the role of the brilliant founder, she remembers how this software was perfected in the early hours of the morning when she financed everything. Suddenly, something catches Isabella's attention. In the midst of so many words about expansion and ambitious goals, Andre announces a joint venture with a multinational company that, ironically, had previously been Isabella's partner in other projects. She understands that he is surrounding every possible space, conquering every sector, and this may make it difficult for her to take legal action or try to get back what is owed to her. When the speech ends, the influencer asks for applause for Andre, who receives the round of applause with a smile that overflows with arrogance. The music turns up, and the celebration continues. It is then that Isabella, at the back of the room, realizes that some cameras recognize her. Reporters approach, murmuring questions about her participation in the company, about the betrayal, about why she is absent from the press conferences. In a matter of seconds, Isabella is surrounded, each voice trying to extract a bombshell statement. She trembles, nervous, considering running away, but suddenly gathers courage and calmly says that she will not comment on anything for now. She walks away, trying to maintain her dignity, and leaves the event amid the flashes. At that moment, we see the protagonist walk through the main doors with firm steps, even though inside she feels the turbulence of a hurricane. In front of the building under the starry night, she takes a deep breath and remembers the words of her mentor. She decides that she will not let this be the final chapter of her story. She finds her car parked and drives through the city with her heart still heavy, but certain that she will take a definitive action. In the days that follow, Isabella works tirelessly alongside her mentor and 2 or 3 trusted friends, planning the creation of a new company for financial solutions and digital security, using a complementary business model, but different enough to avoid patent disputes. She uses her experience, contacts, and reputation to gradually gather support. And surprisingly, she begins to discover that there are investors who do not like Andre and would be willing to support a project that competes with his empire. Andre's sudden fame also attracts enemies and competitors willing to do anything to undermine his monopoly. During this process, Isabella experiences moments of painful memories. She wonders if she really loved someone who never existed the way she imagined. Some nights, she cries alone, remembering old conversations, complicit laughter, modest dinners that seemed like romantic dinners in a movie. But she understands that in order to move forward, she needs to transform this pain into strength. So, she gets out of bed and goes back to studying, planning, and updating herself on the new market trends. She aligns herself with other brilliant minds who, like her, do not let failure get them down. At the same time, Isabella's lawyers are filing lawsuits requesting a review of Andre's company documents, demanding proof of investments made by her, and investigating the origin of the capital that financed the first phases of the business. Although his influence is enormous, the legal battle could take years, but there is a chance that Isabella will recover a significant part of what she invested. The media, in turn, is starting to turn the spotlight on her. They notice that Isabella is re-emerging, announcing her own startup. Between criticism and praise, some consider her courageous, and others doubt that she can compete with the billionaire of the moment. The weeks go by, and one day Isabella receives an unexpected proposal from a large international bank offering a capital injection to accelerate her new venture. It is the chance she needed to gain visibility and firepower against Andre's hegemony. She closes the deal, guaranteeing the injection of millions to hire experienced professionals and launch a beta version of her solution. The market goes into an uproar as it recognizes that Isabella is not a mere supporting actor. And with this fuel, the possibility of a real commercial clash arises. 2 former partners, now rivals, each running a promising company in the digital security sector. Although this entire construction points to a possible future confrontation, what matters is that Isabella finds, in her own story, the strength to rise again. She realizes that despite having been betrayed, she should not define herself by pain. Instead, she reconnects with the positive ambition and the gift she has always had, transforming ideas into reality. The narrative continues, but now not as a victim, but as someone who understood that falling is part of the process, but getting up is part of the choice. We then return to the opening scene. Isabella at the top of a skyscraper, now recognizable as the new headquarters of her own startup, recently opened and still modest compared to Andre's, but with a stunning view of the city. The night envelops everything in a halo of lights, and down below, the streets are teeming with opportunities. Inside the room, there are still unopened moving boxes, the rush of employees adapting to the new office, while Isabella contemplates the horizon, remembering each step that led her there. In a final impulse, she picks up her cell phone and types a message. We don't know who it's for, but we can imagine. Maybe a new investor, a business partner, or someone who will surprise the audience yet. What matters is that Isabella is beginning a new phase, and the weight of the past is no longer an anchor that holds her back. The camera frames her from behind, in front of the glass windows that reveal the lights of the metropolis. The narrative remains open, allowing the viewer to imagine the next chapter of her story. It is an ending full of emotion and possibility. The audience that follows this story feels the anger of betrayal in their chest, the empathy for the unrecognized sacrifice, but also experiences the relief and the expectation of a new chance to overcome. As the credits go up, the hearts of those watching start racing, because Isabella's story is not just about the betrayal of a man who became a billionaire. It is about the strength of a woman who refuses to be defined by an unfair coup. And, in the end, the feeling is left in the air that this could very well be just the first act of an even greater saga, in which Isabella, now more mature and determined, shows the world that there is no fall so great that it cannot propel a new and great flight.